Section 59 is a brilliant piece of legislation. It acknowledges that parents have a responsibility, that parents have authority and a duty to train, to correct their children. And if this Section 59 is repealed, parents will no longer be authorized, they will no longer be legally allowed to use force, to use reasonable force, to correct, train, or discipline their children. They will be left at the mercy of whatever someone reports them. Let me read to you the letter I wrote to, or the response I got back from the Commissioner for Police, because I asked him about this. If Section 59 is repealed, what assurance can you give that parents will not be criminalized, that they will not be charged with criminal assault for smacking their children with a bare hand on a clothed bottom? And he wrote back and said, if Section 59 was repealed in its entirety, parents would not be authorized to use reasonable force by way of correction. If Section 59 is repealed, parents are not authorized, he says, to use reasonable force by way of correction. You can't use reasonable force. Well, obviously unreasonable force is already ruled out of out of bounds, and so you can't use, obviously, you cannot use any force by way of correction. So how do you correct children? How do you train them? How do you discipline without using force? Suddenly, most reasonable force, what people would today consider perfectly logical, reasonable, rational behavior of parents toward children, to get them to do what they're required to do, to prevent them from doing what you forbid them to do. Things like carrying them physically to the room to go to bed. Things like telling them, take that t-shirt off, you're not wearing that downtown, and then helping them to take it off. Those actions would become criminal assault. It's worth 2 years in jail. He goes on to say in this letter, this is the Commissioner for Police, he says, if Section 59 was repealed in its entirety, parents would not be authorized to use reasonable force by way of correction. Having said this, I am advised that parents would still be authorized to use force to prevent harm to their children. For example, if a parent stopped their child from running onto a busy road. Well, that's just common sense. So that kind of force, to pull them off a road or get their hand from, smack their hand from touching that hot plate, no problem. But we're talking about to force them to do things that you require them to do, or to stop them from doing things that you forbid them to do. That is, this is not just physical behavior, but you're training them, correcting them in their moral behavior. And that's what real parenting is about. Well, we'll no longer be able to use force to make them do what they're supposed to do, because we want them to do what is right and stop them from doing what is wrong. He says, however, smacking of a child by way of correcting action would be an assault. So there you have it in plain black and white, that smacking will be banned, smacking will become an assault. And police, when it comes to their attention, will not have the discretion to charge or not. They must uphold the law. So that's Section 59, that's what it says. Now then, what does Sue Bradford's bill actually say? It's very simple. She just has the title of the bill and then the date when it will become valid. And the little section there says Section 59 is hereby repealed. And after that it said a couple other bits, and I think the Education Act are amended as a result of the repeal of Section 59. But the main body of this bill is a commentary by Sue Bradford. It's the explanatory note. Now this stuff does not pass into legislation, but this is a marvelous, instructive insight into the thinking of Sue Bradford. What is her intention? Let me read this to you. The purpose of this bill is to stop force and associated violence and harm under the pretense of domestic discipline being inflicted on children. Presently, Section 59 of the Crimes Act acts as a justification, excuse, or defense for parents and guardians using force against their children where they are doing so for the purposes of correction and the force used is reasonable in the circumstances. The bill will repeal that provision. The effect of this amendment, here's the important part, the effect of this amendment is that the statutory protection for use of force by parents and guardians will be removed. The parents will now be in the same position as everyone else so far as the use of force against children is concerned. The use of force on a child may constitute an assault under Section 194A of the Crimes Act, a comparatively new provision in the criminal law, and the repeal of Section 59 ought not revive any old common law justification, excuse, or defense that the provision may have codified. Some very interesting things here. First, the effect of the amendment is to remove the protection from parents. They will now be in the same position as everyone else so far as use of force against children is concerned. Okay, so if it would be assault for a complete stranger to come up to your child and try to change their clothes, wipe their bottom, feed them any particular thing, make them do this or make them stop doing that. If it would be assault for a stranger to come up and do that to your child, and it would be an assault, obviously, then it will be an assault for you to do that with your child. You will no longer be able to force your children to do, as we've been saying, those things which it would be unlawful for a stranger to make your child do, which is virtually everything. What authority does a total stranger have over your child to make them do anything or to make them stop doing anything? No authority, none whatsoever. And that's the authority that you, as a parent, will now have with your children, none whatsoever. You will not be able to do that. It will become a criminal act. And Sue Bradford is quick. The very next sentence she says, the use of force on a child may constitute assault under Section 194A, which says assault on a child under 14 is worth 2 years in jail. Now here's the real problem is because of, in New Zealand, we have this word assault and the way it's defined in law. It is defined. The word force is not defined, but the word assault is defined. It's a very broad definition, and it can catch just about anybody. Let me read it to you. This is from Section 2 of the Crimes Act. Assault means the act of intentionally applying or attempting to apply force to the person of another, directly or indirectly, or threatening by any act or gesture to apply such force to the person of another, if the person making the threat has or causes the other to believe on reasonable grounds that he has present ability to effect his purposes. So, if you go like this to your child, you've made a gesture, and if the child reads in that gesture an intention by you to go over there and clap your hand around that child's mouth if they don't be quiet, then you have committed assault against your child. It's precisely what it says here, that assault can be an actual act or the word or is there, or gesture to apply such force if the person thinks that that's what you're going to do. It's a very broad definition, and so parents will be basically, their hands will be tied as far as training and correcting their children. They will not be able to use, they will not be legally authorized to use reasonable force. Now, how reasonable is that? To make reasonable force illegal. There's something basically illogical and crazy going on here. So that's Bradford's intention. Now, she has lately been saying things like, oh, no, it's not our intention to criminalize parents, but they will be criminalized. She said, oh, no, it's not our intention to see the police arrest parents for light smacks. Well, excuse me. That's precisely what this is all about. To make banning smacking, it will certainly be the case. We have the police commissioner in writing has said smacking will become an assault. But she says that's not her intention. Well, it clearly is from what she said.